Time to welcome in the fellas, Ward-Henninger and Rip Hamilton, the champ, here to get us covered on the association, of course, starting with the big game tonight. First meeting since that trade with Simmons heading the other way in Harden, now in Philly. Chance we see the beard go off here, Colin, against his former team.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's not going to care about high-pressure situations, it's James Harden. I don't know what phases that guy, except maybe the playoffs, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I expect, a ton of energy in Philadelphia. There's people paying $4,000 for courtside seats next to Ben Simmons so they can possibly, utter some things his way. I think it's going to be a tremendous game. I'm really looking forward to this, not just for the theatrics of it all, but on the court. I mean, these are two of the best teams in the NBA when healthy, and it'll be interesting to see how Philadelphia plays defense here. They've done well defensively so far. That's been the main question after the James Harden trade, but this is a potent offensive team in the Brooklyn Nets. When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are on the court together, which isn't often, granted, they have 120 offensive rating, which would be by far the best in the league. So in addition to all the theatrics and the fun that it's going to be in terms of atmosphere, I'm really looking forward to an exciting game between two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I got to agree with Colin. This is going to be a fun, exciting game. This is going to be a lot of fireworks, and it's going to be more personal than just business for James Harden. And I think the Brooklyn Nets is going to understand that. This is a game that, James is going to want. He's going to want to come out aggressive. He might try to be too aggressive, just knowing that he want to win this game so bad. And when you're looking at the Brooklyn Nets defensively, they're going to boggle down him. They're going to try to know where he's at each time he got the ball, maybe try to trap him in pick and rolls, because I know when one of the star players get traded to another team and you're in that scouting report, you're on the opposing team, and you're in that locker room, the coach is going to do everything possible not to have this guy to have a big game. So if that's trapping, if that's taking the ball out of his hands and not letting the crowd get behind him, things like that is going to happen. So this is going to be a huge game. I can't wait to watch it. I wish Ben Simmons would be playing in this game, but hopefully he'll be on the bench to cheer his teammates on.
This will be interesting. So far, it seems like Philly has won that trade. They're 5-0 in the games that Harden has played since coming over for Brooklyn. Of course, that one tipping off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. NBA power rankings are out. You don't have the Suns at the top there, Colin. It's the Celtics. They moved up 7 spots for you to that #1 spot.
Yeah, the Celtics, I mean, they're the best team in basketball right now. Their last 20 games, they're 17-3. Over that stretch, they have a +16 net rating. Just to put that in some perspective, the 2015-16 Warriors won 73 games. Their net rating was +10. So the Celtics are almost, way better than that. So the Celtics have been tremendous. It really stems from their defense, which has been #1 in the league for a long time now. And obviously, Jason Tatum is carrying them on offense. Every week I do the power rankings. I kind of sort and see how many points a player averaged in any given week. I had to kind of refresh it this week because it said Jason Tatum averaged 45 points. But that's what happens when you drop 37, 54, and 44. He has really learned to read the game, pick and choose his spots. The other night, he scored 16 points in the fourth quarter to help win a game. This Celtics team is connected. They're moving the ball offensively, and they always have that stout #1 defense to fall back on. This has become a dark horse candidate for a lot of analysts in terms of teams that could potentially win the NBA title, and you see why, especially if Jason Tatum can continue to perform at this level.
Yeah, I like Boston right now, though I think they're the #1 team in the league, especially during their last week of play. I don't see it. I don't believe it. But Jason Tatum has been playing great basketball. On the offense end, the game has really slowed down for him. I mean, earlier in the season, they had struggles. You hear guys in the locker room rumbling, saying that, hey, you know what, he needs to pass the ball. He needs to let other guys make plays for him. So I think that now he's kind of buying into this new offense. You got to remember, he got a new coach this season. So he's starting to buy into this offense, knowing where his spots is on the floor, letting the game slow down a little bit. Jaylen Brown being out a couple games didn't allow Jason Tatum to kind of put this team on his back. But I do think that the Boston Celtics is moving in the right direction. Defensively, they've been great. But if I had to say the best team in the Eastern Conference right now, I would have to go with the Miami Heat.
All right. So the Heat, of course, you mentioned them. When it comes to the Eastern Conference teams in the top 5, we have 4 of them. The Heat are one of them, the Bucks, as well as the Celtics. When you look at it, you got the Suns still there and the Sixers at 5. Colin, when you see this, are we seeing a shift in power from maybe not the West, but in the East when it comes to the top teams?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds weird for people like me who grew up with the NBA the last couple decades. The West has really been the class of the NBA. And now we look at it and it's flipped. You look at a team like the Suns, they go into the playoffs and they look at their path to the championship. They're thinking, all right, this doesn't look too bad. In the East, say you're the Miami Heat and you're the #1 seed. You're looking at the Brooklyn Nets in the first round with Kevin Durant and half of Kyrie Irving and potentially Ben Simmons. Then in the next round, you got either the Bulls or the Celtics. That's just to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. We have to play the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks. So it's an absolute gauntlet out East. I love to see it. It's really exciting. And I think what it's done for the NBA is it's made this last month really exciting. Usually this last month before the playoffs, a lot of teams are tanking, not too exciting, but I think there's going to be so many races and the seeding is so important in the Eastern Conference because all these teams are so equal and so good. It's really going to come down to matchups. So it's going to be a fun last month of the NBA regular season.
Yeah, the seeding probably, Colin, is probably the most important of all this right now, and especially going into the last couple of games of the season. I remember being in the lead and being a team that was going to the Eastern Conference Finals every year, and we will always try to get a really great start early in the season just so we can kind of rest the last 10, 11 games of the season, knowing that we was going to have a long run in the playoffs, but not now. You can't do that no more. I mean, it's tight, especially at the top 5. And I do believe that the East is taking over the lead. I mean, I'm so used to watching NBA games, always talking about the Western Conference, but anytime the struggling New York Knicks can go out West and win 4 games, that just lets you know how weak the Western Conference is. Especially what it is now. So it should be fun. It should be exciting. I can't wait to see how this all shapes out. I can't wait to see, if Brooklyn does get the 8th seed and you see Miami and some of the top teams at the top 2, top 3 seeds, to see if they still want to be in that #1 seed to kind of play against a Brooklyn Nets team that has all their guys ready to play. So it's going to be interesting coming down the stretch.
We just saw the odds to win the NBA title. That last team on there, the Denver Nuggets, by the way, they're 7th in the rankings outside the top 5. But Colin, they went on a 4-0 streak this past week. A lot of it has to do with Nikola Jokic, the MVP, reigning MVP, triple dub should be his new nickname, right?
He's a maniac. I don't know what else to say about this guy. I mean, he averaged 39 points, 15 rebounds, and 11 assists over his last 3 games. That includes a game in which he scored 30 points in the fourth quarter and overtime combined to bring his team back. So, I know a lot of people don't like the advanced stats with Nikola Jokic, how he leads the league in PER and VORP and all these things. How about just his regular stats? The guy is just a flat-out machine, and he does whatever his team needs to win. That's what I love about him. They won a game last week where he scored 8 points. And then another game, he scores 30 in the fourth and overtime. So this guy really just has a temperature of his team, what his team needs to win. And he goes out there and does it every single night. He's performing on the defensive end. I also want to give a shout out to Michael Malone, who doesn't get a lot of love. So if you don't think Nikola Jokic is the MVP because of what he's done with this team, leading them to 40 wins at this point in the season, then that means Michael Malone must be the coach of the year, because with this roster, without their second and third best players in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., for them to be where they are right now with basically the same record as the Philadelphia 76ers, both Malone and Jokic deserve a ton of credit.
And Brandon, too, when you look at the Joker's stats, I mean, they're very comparable to last year when he won the MVP. I mean, this guy right here is probably, in my opinion, the most efficient player in the NBA. I mean, if you look at his field goal percentage and way he's able to get buckets, he's always shooting over 60%. He's always making the right play. I think the biggest problem is why a lot of people don't talk about him in the MVP race, because his game is not sexy. It's just not. I mean, the guy probably jumps about this high off the ground. But his play on the floor, what he's able to do, especially without the second and third best player on that team. I wasn't going to say #1, but the second and third best player on the team has just been incredible. He's been carrying this team since the beginning of the season. His play has been crazy. So I think we need to give him a lot more props. Just because his game ain't as sexy as everybody else's, we got to give him a little bit more props in the MVP race.
What's the old saying? Slow and steady, it always wins the race. We've seen that before, and that was the case last year when he won MVP, and may be in the conversation again this year. As always, Rip and Colin, appreciate your time breaking it all down when it comes to the power rankings. But this day in sports, Rip, I want you to take a look at this. because you were a part of this organization.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.